Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the school committee of Tuesday, January 24, 2023. Excuse me, the school committee meeting will be called to order. The school committee has just come out of executive session, which began at approximately 6:30, and we're now coming out of that and into full and public session. So if we make and we join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And as we do, I'd like to read the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Item number 6 on the agenda, public comment. Any member of the community who wishes to address the committee on any matter, whether it's on the committee agenda or not, is welcome to do so at this time. Do we have anyone in studio? Do we have anyone on Zoom, WCAT folks, to join us that may want to address the committee? No. Seeing none and hearing none, we shall move on. Item number 7, Student Advisory Council. Do we have any students with us? I know it's...
We have Jim.
Yes.
Excellent.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello and welcome.
Yep.
Okay, I think my video may not be working, but I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
So for our updates this week for academics, we are in the middle of midterm assessment week.
Could I interrupt? Could you guys just introduce yourselves and what grade you're from? In case is there anyone else on the line, or just you?
It's me and Vanessa.
Okay, great.
Yes, both of us. So I'm Isabella. I'm a senior at Wakefield, and I've been on the school committee representative for 2 years.
And I'm Vanessa Westlake, and this is my first year, and I'm a junior.
Great.
Bella, you may have to turn your video off.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, so for this week's updates, for academics-wise, we are in the middle of midterms. For me, it's going pretty well so far. My teachers have been great about even though we have to stay for class after our midterms in the morning, my teachers have been pretty good about allowing us to have that time to study and prepare for our upcoming midterms. So it's been nice to have those classes, the classes of the midterms, the day before we take the midterms, hopefully that makes sense. And for semester 2, term 2 grades will be available on paper early next week. And for other school news and timely happenings, Revolution Prep is offering a practice SAT on Saturday, February 4th. A small group of WHMS female leaders, including elected officers, youth action team, and Black student union leaders, have been invited to attend an Empowering Girls Conference this Thursday, hosted by Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan. The conference will focus on cultivating engaged and empowered citizens and will feature a keynote presentation from Valerie Biden Owens, the first woman in U.S. history to run a presidential campaign for her brother, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. And Vanessa will take it from here.
Okay, so now for athletic, visual, performing arts, and extracurricular activity updates. So we had an a cappella night on Saturday at the Galvin, and it was a huge success. The Galvin auditorium was packed with people, So we had performances by the middle school a cappella group, and then also 2 high school groups, Voices of Steel and Mic Drop, and a professional a cappella performance too by Ball in the House. And then winter athletic teams are off to a hot start. Our Wakefield High School winter sport teams currently have a combined record of 60 wins, 18 losses, and 1 tie, which is a 77% winning percentage. The girls basketball team has already qualified for the state tournament and is ranked in 4th place in the statewide rankings. Boys basketball will qualify for the state tournament tonight if they beat Reading, and they are currently ranked in 8th place in the statewide rankings. The boys hockey team will qualify for the tournament if they can win 3 more games, and they are currently ranked in 15th place in the statewide rankings.
That's great. Are there any questions for the student reps? No? That's terrific. Well, thank you both very much, girls. Thank you very much for your work and your taking some time away from studying for midterms. I know that's a busy week for that. So, but thank you for joining us and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8 on the agenda, consent agenda. We have a motion.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the January 10, 2023 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the January 19, 2023 school committee finance and facilities subcommittee and school committee policy and communications subcommittee meetings as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 9, Chair's comments and items. Actually, very briefly, first update we began, which is on the beginnings of the contract negotiations with the teachers in Unit A. We had our first meeting with Teacher Association, Unit A representatives, a week and a half ago, where we began just some conversations around some of the ground rules and some of the process and protocols that we would mutually work toward with regard to beginning this negotiation. It was a very positive conversation, very, very, very engaging, and I think we both had an eye on being able to resolve our next collective bargaining agreement in both the best interest, of course, of students and teaching and teachers, and hopefully within before the end of the school year. So that's at least the mutual goal so far. Anyways, we're working nicely after meeting number 1. Our next negotiation meeting with the teachers is next Tuesday night. Also under my items to discuss this coming Saturday, as we all know, are all working toward very enthusiastically, this Saturday, January, wishful thinking. Saturday, January 28th, 2023, at the Field House here at Wakefield Memorial High School is the annual town or the special town meeting for the purposes of voting on the moving forward with the construction of the new high school. It has been discussed and presented any number of times. There's been some terrific forums, most recently last weekend. It was very well covered, I thought, in Monday's item, with some nice pictures and some nice, storyline. So hopefully we'll get a great turnout from citizens of the community in support of what is a very much needed and hopefully well documented, well evidenced project. So please, I would encourage all to join their fellow citizens Saturday morning at the Field House at Wakefield Memorial High School and vote yes. Yes for a new WMHS. Okay. Does anyone have any adds or comments to that item? No? All right, very good. Next on the agenda, 9C, is a discussion around subcommittee goals We have talked about this a couple of times as we've kicked the can down the road once, maybe twice. But I think here it's probably reasonable at the halfway point of the year anyways, to be able to spend some time and share what the subcommittees have been working on as it compares to the larger district goals and the larger school superintendent goals. So I had agreed that we would do that this evening. Our subcommittee chair is prepared to share subcommittee goals?
Yes.
Okay, great. We have any volunteers to go first? Mr. Ingles?
Sure. So in our last subcommittee meeting, which was last Thursday, we talked about our goals and sort of, pulled together the listing that we had in our retreat. And so we broke them down into essentially two different areas. We are the policy and communications subcommittee, so that's how we more or less bucketized the goals. Under communications, and these are, again, how they were sort of formalized in our retreat, and then we are halfway in, so they've undergone a little bit of adjustment to sort of fit in line with our discussions. So under communications, presentations to school committees, we're going to be looking at that, both from how information is provided to the school committee on both a advance notice, if we could get more time to sort of sit with material before we have a meeting about it. I think we had communicated that would be beneficial for us. And then that presentations were more concise in an attempt to sort of shorten down maybe some of the marathon meetings that we had been accustomed to in the past. Secondly, we talked about effective communication around things like policy changes. We had heard that was a challenge for some of the educators in district, is when policy committee does make a change, that once that's done, how is that effectively communicated out to the larger district community? So we'll talk about that a little bit. Community communications, the ongoing community calls that Doug has been doing, bringing in some other partners from the district, whether it's Tim or if it's Christine or Justin. I think he's been a fan favorite. No offense, Tim. Lately, everyone's liking the meal. And then Doug's been talking about things like coffee chats with perhaps some people from the community, just some ongoing work in that space, and then continued public relations work with Guilfoyle. Under policy, our policy book is currently going under a review by the Mass Association of School Committees. We get that review and we hand it off to our legal counsel to sort of go through and see where to connect the dots, and then to make sure that we're sort of in line with Mass General Law. So that's ongoing. We had discussed READY topics, race, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We had talked about that in our retreat, and we're talking about we're having discussions in that space from curriculum, from student programs. So how are we as a school committee sort of prepared to have those discussions with those interested parties? Are we caught up to speed on what maybe is occurring currently? So we're going to be having discussions in that space. And then that kind of is what happened in retreat. Some things that came out more organically since we've started the school year is talking about youth representation that has come out of the student services, with Kevin's liaison with the youth council. So that's a discussion that we're having pretty actively now, which seems good. And then something that has come up more recently is school start times. Just something where there's a presentation that a student within district has done to the Board of Health, to administration. It's an interesting discussion, and other schools are doing something in those spaces. So we feel like it might be worth kind of just taking a look at and seeing the pros and cons and just beginning that discussion. So those are effectively our goals.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Terrific. Well, thank you. Thank you and the subcommittee members for that work. Amy?
I sent a slide. Does Ryan have it? So I'm the chair of the Student Services Subcommittee. I just put together this one little slide, so, because it's a newer committee, so I thought it was important to share what the committee actually does. So we work with the superintendent and other administrators to review and monitor data and other assessment measures to ascertain the success of student services and staffing positions, not personnel, including but not limited to the special education department, counseling and guidance services, social emotional learning and interventions, nursing, social work, mental health, and we make improvement recommendations for these programs regarding budget, finance, and policy as appropriate under the school committee's purview. So we talk every year. This is my second year on the committee. Last year we were focused a lot on mental health, and when the budget came up, we recommended there were some positions added for mental health. This year the team is myself, it's Eileen Colleran, Kevin Fontanella. We work with Doug and Kara and Rosie. And then Lindsay Mosca is kind of behind the scenes. She's the one that did the survey. We meet on Mondays, typically at 5:30 as needed, and they're open if anyone ever wants to join. So this year's goal is to identify and recommend strategies to address areas of concerns identified in the annual Student Services Survey. Now, while we have one goal, we might have more than one result from the goal. So the survey went out January 10th. We sent a reminder, well, Kara handled the reminder on the 19th, and it closed on the 20th. We had 205 teacher responses and 468 parent caregiver responses. There were two separate surveys. So we just got the data back yesterday, which we looked at briefly. And at a meeting in the future, we'll go over and share it with the public and share our recommendations. Kevin, I don't know if Kevin or Eileen have anything to add. That's basically our overview.
Yeah, I just really like to thank, I was really kind of surprised and really pleased with the sheer amount of teachers and parents that responded to the survey. I think having like 205 teachers in a district this size is pretty amazing. Able to get a lot of great feedback for teacher concerns and their observations about needs in the district. It was really, for me, going through the data so far, it was really interesting to see the teacher concerns, see the parent concerns, and really be able to kind of, have those two different, see so many similarities, but also having those perspectives at the same time was really valuable. I'm definitely looking forward to the future meeting, going over the results and then talking about action steps to how we could use that information to plan some, needed, changes or interventions to kind of help address the concerns. So again, thank you very much to all the, none of this, works unless we have buy-in, and thank you for everyone that submitted.
Eileen's on Zoom. Did you have anything to, not to put you on the spot, but if you wanted to add anything?
No, I'm excited to dive into all the data and the comments and present them to the public. Lots of interesting stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And then the two things I noted at the bottom, so student services spreads over all departments when you think about it. And we have two speakers, outside speakers coming in, which kind of relate to executive functioning, which is where we started with the survey. And the first one is on February 9th at 7 o'clock, and it's virtual, so that's helpful. And it's from the Wakefield CPAC, and it's a Dr. Eileen Bratton, I don't want to mispronounce, talks about processing speed. And then for our Parent University keynote speaker, it's Sarah Ward, which I couldn't be more excited about. She's, when parents ask me what speakers they recommend, I always say Sarah and Lynn Lyons, and Wakefield's had them both, so it's pretty incredible.
I know the Parent University Committee is working on marketing to get more information on those two speakers. Probably in the next week or so, we'll get more information around Zoom links and that kind of thing, registration.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? That's all I have.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, Stephen.
So did the survey that went to teachers was different than the parent caregiver survey, correct?
Yeah, but I think the only differences were like what grade do you teach versus what grade are your students in? Does that make sense? Or if your student was on an ed plan. But as far as the general questions, like what content areas, you know, whether you had to do 1, 2, 3 years or your top concern, those were the same questions.
Okay.
If I could just add, in regard to the data that was collected, I think we have to especially thank Lindsay Mosca
Yep.
for both compiling the survey and kind of processing the data and creating a presentable format that we can use as we move forward to really assess what our priorities are going to be. So special thanks to Lindsay.
Great, excellent, thank you. Thank you very much, Amy, and Student Services Committee. Next, I will represent, as Chair of the Labor and Personnel Subcommittee, I'll represent the type of goals that we have, the things that we're working on. We started out the year with negotiations and successful negotiations to extend and renew and extend the superintendent's contract. Obviously, we began, as we've discussed a couple times, and I mentioned earlier tonight, now the beginnings of the Unit A teacher collective bargaining agreement. That collective bargaining agreement expires August 31 of 2023, so it expires at the end of this school year, but certainly before the new school year begins. So we've got a little bit of a runway here, and we're pretty looking forward to some positive conversation. The goals around that are to continue to support and respect and appreciate the work of our educators and our teachers and all members who are affiliated with Unit A, and to make sure that the work that they're able to do is supported both financially and with appropriate resources, as well as obviously to continue to get the best that we can for our students and families. Secondly, something going back to the retreat that Stephen mentioned under under policy and communications. When we had our school committee retreat back in the fall, we talked about culture. And that is a couple of things that the Labor Relations Subcommittee has discussed a couple of times, and we would certainly do that again. We anticipate that becoming a part of the labor negotiations with Unit A, but having an appreciation for the different cultural aspects of each of the buildings and each of the grade levels, as well as what is the culture and climate, and what are the type of things that we, the whole school committee, as well as the administration, and really the townspeople, need to be more and more ever aware of the concerns as well as the needs to continue to improve the culture and the labor relationships that we have. We began a couple months ago with the regular labor management meetings that the superintendent hosts between the senior management and senior leadership by asking to have school committee representation at that. Stephen Ingles has volunteered from the Labor Relations Subcommittee to be our representative at the Labor Relations regular meetings. That has begun in earnest, and that was one of the goals that we have, to be able to continue to add school committee voice and a listening post for that work. So thank you for that. And also the last thing, here in fiscal year 23 and moving into 24, we're hearing pretty regular reports from the superintendent and the business administrator on all of the grant funding positions, especially those that were pandemic and COVID related, and how the budgets for the fiscal year 24 and potentially even 25 are going to be impacted by those funds beginning to dissipate. So those are the points and the goals for labor relations for fiscal year 23. The next committee, which is Finance and Facilities, Mr. Boudreau is not able to be with us tonight. He asked if he could provide his report at our next meeting, so he will do so. Great. So again, thank you for being able to share. I think that having these minutes added, having these goals added into the minutes of the meeting will hopefully keep us all aware of what each other is working on, and might not a bad sort of a checklist and benchmark for how we're doing, as well as to let the community knows who are so willing to really get engaged in reading minutes of meetings, to get really in tune with that too. But it's important work. and it's important that it be done in the open this way. So, thank you. Okay, item number 10, moving along, superintendent's reports, recommendations. Dr. Lyons,
With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to take my items out of order.
please do.
And I'd like to welcome our director of our MEDCO program, Glavia Smith, to the table. And so, Glavia?
Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Glavia.
I wasn't prepared to go first. Good evening. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm just gonna do a short presentation, provide information about our program that we have, the MECO program. So we started off this year with 70 students across the district. Currently, we're serving 68 students. We lost 2 students. One transferred to a charter school and one returned back to Boston Public School for special education services. So that was a big loss for us. We've also increased our staffing since I've started. We are now a staff of 5, including myself. I have 2 coordinators now. I have one at the middle school, one at the elementary school, and 2 paras, one at Greenwood and one at Woodville. So we're a team of 5, just trying to kind of get our wheels in order to work like a team, like a well-oiled machine, I should say. Because we're a bigger team, and so we're doing a lot of collaborating, a lot of meeting, just to make sure we're all on the same page about transportation and the needs of the kids, and making sure we're keeping accurate count of the kids within the district and around the district, and making sure we're connecting with parents. For enrollment of this school year, 22-23, we ended up accepting 4 elementary students across the different schools. We admitted, we had 7 new middle school students. That's our biggest group that came in this year of middle school students. And we added this year I kind of played around with the idea of adding 2 high school students, which were 9th and 10th graders. It's been a little challenge for those students, only because I just think high school has its own component to it. So when you're starting high school and you're new to the district, new to the MECO program, it does prove some challenge, both academically and social and emotionally. So just kind of working with those students to assimilate into the program, and also being used to being in Wakefield, the transportation, and so on. But our elementary kids are cruising right along as expected most of the time, because elementary kids tend to kind of pick up the routine quicker, even though parents are like, the bus ride is so long for them. And the first week they're a little tired, but after that they just pick up and they just kind of go with the routine. So they're hanging in there. Our middle school kids had a little adjustment period from September to October, but they seem to have adjusted and they're moving along and cruising right along. Currently, we have 27 high school students, 28 middle school kids, and 13 elementary kids. That comes up with our 68 number of students in the district. Programming wise, we continue to run 2 buses every day, high school bus only, and a combined bus of middle school and elementary. We do offer a late bus to all our high school kids that they use for either extracurricular activities or any activities that they would like to do in the district. So we're in winter sports, so we do have a late bus. It comes a little late, like 8:30, so we play around with the numbers. So sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 7. So depending what the time the kids need, I stay in communication with our transportation director to make sure transportation is all set for the evening time. And I'm usually on call until all students are picked up, and then I kind of time it about an hour ride, because they don't have as much stops on a late bus, and then I'll know that everyone is home and everyone is all set. Wakefield Academy is offered to all our elementary students before and after school. Before school, for when we get in the district early enough for them to just kind of unwind, have some breakfast, and just hang out before school start, and then after school just to help with transportation, because all our kids get out at the same time. So they'll wait as we go around the district to pick up kids. They'll wait at Wakefield Academy. We also offer all the camps. Yes, all the camps that we've done. So February camp, we usually offer slots to families that are identified, that it's automatically given to us, and the families just have to let us know if they would like to participate. So if we have enough families with interest, we'll provide transportation to and from camp. So we've done it the past 2 years. We've run both February and April break, and then this year we did summer. So the summer program took our ESL kids, also kids who just wanted to do Wakefield Academy, and we also added our high school kids who needed to do credit recovery. So we're able to coordinate all of them on the bus as needed. This year I piloted a program for Affinity Girls Group that's happening at the middle school with our 5th and 6th graders. That is going really well. They're enjoying it. 5th and 6th graders a little easier because of the team block time they have. They have a block between 1:30 and 2:15 where they meet in regular team meetings, but it's kind of like a free block, but not really a free block. So they've been able to do that. So the purpose of the group really is to start building some friendships with the girls between each other. And our hope is that depending on how the success of that program goes, we'll expand it to our 7th and 8th grade girls. And then hopefully in the future we'll expand it and have them invite a district friend to the group that they'll be able to join. So the hope is by forging some of these relationships, they'll be able to stay friends and they go into high school with each other and have a bond with a group of girls or friends that they can rely on each other during that time. So far that's going really well and they seem to be enjoying it. Our Black Student Union continues to run. It is led by a MECO student and also a Wakefield student. So we are trying to find new leadership for that group because the 2 girls we have now are graduating, they're seniors. So we're hoping to identify some new leaders through student leaders and student telling other students to come. Not really us choosing them, but them wanting to be involved so that the group can continue to go. Last but not least, we are now heading into our new enrollment period. This year, I really want to add at least 10 to the elementary group. I think as our elementary kids get older, they're moving to the middle school. We're having less and less kids in the elementary. So I'm hoping, because we have 5 seniors graduating, I'm hoping I'll be able to at least add at least 10 new elementary students to our cohort of students. So, and that was a lot. So I don't know if anybody have any questions or concerns.
Any questions or thoughts? Yes, Kevin?
Just really quickly, you were talking about kind of the number of high school, middle school, and elementary. Is it typical that students will start in the elementary and work their way through, or are there kind of start and stop points for students?
So ideally, it works to start in the middle school, elementary, only because I think elementary students have a chance to really learn the district. They build bonds early on. They become assimilated as part of the district. And they understand how the curriculum works and how the district works compared to if they come into high school. Our curriculum is sometimes can be a little more rigorous for some of our high school kids when they transition. So it's a little bit harder for them to catch on. So it requires them having to really meet with teachers, be motivated to do it. But it's not uncommon because even when I went to MECO, I started in the 9th grade. So it's not uncommon, but it's just, it requires a little bit more motivation on the part of high school students compared to elementary. And then middle school for the most part, if it's 5th grade, it's fine because middle school starts at the Galvin. So they essentially end up spending 4 years at the Galvin. So that's equivalent to if you started elementary kindergarten, let's say at Woodville, you'd be there for 4 years. So Galvin would be ideal, but for the most part, it is ideal to start in the elementary. But I do meet with principals to find out what grade they have openings for in regards to a district of how many seats we have available for each grade, and I take students based on those numbers. And then last year I just played with the idea to see how would we do with high school kids. It's not awful, but I think it requires a little bit more work and vetting and preparing students for them to really start off the year successfully and have a great academic year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for all the work that you and the team do for
Thank
this
you.
program.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or thoughts to share? Yes, Amy?
Hi, thank you. I don't know if it was last year, but one of the years we talked about when you MECO students in the elementary school and more like pairing them, so you're not just, so you said there's a total of 13 now? Is
Right.
it broken up between all four, or do you find there's more?
It's all four in the same district, but we do have, a bulk of our kids are sitting at Woodville. It just happens to happen that
Yeah.
way. So we did talk about the parent host program, so a couple of things. Ideally, it works for us to match kids, but what we found is what's more successful if it's done organically. If kids meet kids in classroom, and if I always tell my parents, if your student comes home, they talk about a particular student every day, you should ask them, who's this student you keep talking about? You keep talking about Sally, you keep talking about John, who are they? You know, try to engage and go on. Or if you have a question, I can check in with a teacher and ask the teacher, who's this other student that's in the classroom. Now that we have an elementary coordinator, it's a little bit easier because she's in the different elementary school and she has more eyes on them and can see it. So when we started the parent program, it was right when COVID was about to start. So COVID really impacted our ability to really do our partnership program. So even when we came back to school, I think all parents and even our district parents were really concerned about being in closed space, bringing different different people into your family, what they would call your bubble. So it became a real concern. So even when we tried to revamp it and get everyone to come back, it became very difficult because I think a lot of parents were expressing concern about COVID exposures to their own family. So I think that has been a little difficult, but I think I continue to encourage both parents across grade level. If your student is staying in the district with a particular friend, you should get to know who the friend is. Because organically, it works better if it's organic, because what happened is the kids kind of already forged this friendship. Now they just kind of taking the parents with them, and parents just need to engage and find out who the students are and meet as parent and as the two families together, and that way it's natural. And also, as we know with kids, today they're friends, the next day they're not friends anymore. So, but parents still remain friends. So, we try to facilitate that and encourage that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it don't, but I think our newer families have a harder time understanding that concept. But we encourage the kids, especially in their playground, or if there's activities going, we tell parents you should come. If they're having, like Woodville sometimes have like a activity night or some type of, or if they have pumpkin patch, we'll tell parents you should come with your kids because they're probably going to see their friends there. Then you can kind of get to meet their friend. That way, that if something's home, you could say, oh, my student's going to stay with X student or go home with this student because you know their parent.
And I know in the past, the school committee went to Boston for a meeting. I don't know who arranged that, if that's something we
It was
want.
arranged by us.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's something we want.
We were actually talking about doing that again.
Oh, good.
It only stopped because of COVID,
Yeah.
because that wasn't.
Sounds
something-
like you want me to arrange a meeting. I can.
We
So
would
if you
love-
just let me
that'd be
know, I can check in with Doug, to just figure out what date works best for you guys. This actually would be a good time because the MECO headquarters have moved. They're in a better building. They're in a different building. So if that is something the school board wants to host a meeting there, I can definitely find out what the calendar availability is,
That would be
and
great.
we can schedule one there. So just
I'm
let me know.
thinking like
Definitely.
April, May, so we're not dodging snowstorms.
Sounds like a good month, and it's lighter outside.
Yeah.
Thank
That'd be
you.
great.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Flavia.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Flavia.
One question.
Oh, yes.
I just just a comment was, I just wanted to applaud Angela on the work that she's doing in the elementary.
Yes.
It's been great. And she makes herself available sort of to everyone in the district. And sort of with the new position, she's had just a really successful year.
Yeah, she's doing a really good, I have to say, like when you create a position, you don't know you really need the position until someone gets in the position. So it's one of those things that just happen organically also, and I feel like Suda was doing the job, and I think this position has really allowed her to really connect with not just the different building administrators, but also with teachers across the district period around our students. She is attending the data meetings about our students, meeting one-on-one with teachers to figure out where are some of the areas that our elementary kids are really struggling. We've already set up one-on-one tutoring for one of our fourth graders that we've already identified is struggling in math. So that's something we're working on. So I think it just really highlights the importance of having someone at different grade levels who can really just focus on those students' needs so that we're not missing any students, because as we know, fourth grade is a transitional year to fifth grade, and that student that we have happens to be a brand new student to our district. So it was really nice that, we were able to catch on very quickly through her going to the data meetings to figure out that this student is really in need of support.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glavia. We are super fortunate to have Glavia, and if you were to visit the district and see the work that Glavia does, not only is she a district leader, but you would see her at a parent meeting in elementary, you'd see her working with, people who report to her at the middle school in regard to academic support. So she's all over the district, and she's advocating and supporting teachers, students, and so she's just really very fortunate to have her. So thank you, Glavia.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to invite Tim O'Brien and Estelle Burdick to come up and to just give an update in regard to school safety and the work that they are doing in leading the crisis team.
Okay. Hi. Thank you for having us here. And we wanted to just talk about the safety district crisis team that we are working with our schools administration predominantly with making sure that we have a plan in place for our teachers and staff in our schools to quickly access the plans that they need in order to, safely and deal with our plans, with events that happen. So what we're doing right now is we're working on creating our flip chart. This chart will be easy for our teachers, especially substitutes and staff that may not be there all the time and may not get the full training that our, full-time teachers get. This flip chart will allow them to quickly access the information that they need for any event that takes place in the school. So right now, we have this great sample that Tom Walsh gave us, and we're going to use it for our flip chart, and we're going to just, adjust some of the language, et cetera, and some of the major points that, we want to make sure we emphasize so that the teachers can access the information really fast. There's some material in here that doesn't go with our district, so we'll just be taking out those pieces and putting in pieces that are tailored to us. So we're excited to be able to be working on this. They'll be kept in each classroom, right by the door, in a uniform location, so that all staff, new or old, know exactly where it is in case of an emergency, and they can refer to it very quickly. So we're really excited about this project.
Yeah, so this example, like Estelle said, came from Tom Walsh, who was a big part of putting this actual book together. This comes from the city of Malden. And Tom has been working in this area for a long time, has a lot of expertise. So we're very appreciative of his involvement in this whole project. And if you're interested, I can kind of bring this up if anyone wants to breeze through it. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. And we've been working heavily with Shannon Blacker, who obviously heads up the Doyle, and she's been on the district crisis team for a very long time. So she's a wealth of information, and she's been through a lot of scenarios and situations and incidences that have happened in the district. So she's been a great wealth of information for us to rely on in making sure that this flip chart and the support that goes along with it is really pertinent to exactly what we need in the district.
Yeah, so what we would do is we would make these quick reference guide would be the term that we're using. We'd make them available easily in every classroom. And like Estelle said, that any kind of crisis you may meet, it's listed on there on a tab. Instead of flipping through something, a 500-page policy book, you'd be able to quickly access the information that pertains to your crisis and follow step by step. The phone calls you need to make, what you need to do next. It gives you a clear map of start to finish, how to mitigate these crises. So, well, we're excited to get this finished and deployed in classrooms, and we're looking forward to working with the rest of the crisis team and find their feedback and just their input on what they think would be a value add and what might not work here in Wakefield Public Schools. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I was gonna move on, so if you have something.
Okay, one last thing. Sorry. We also thought that with regard to substitutes that come in, we have a lot of need for that, and this is a great tool to give them ahead of time so that they can preview it and get a little more familiar with exactly how our district functions in a crisis, and prepare them so that when they come into the classroom, they can feel more confident that they can, make the right choices and decisions, in a time of need.
And so where I was headed was another thing that we're working on and sort of really excited to get moving on is we're bringing in a third party to do a security assessment through all of our schools. So over the next month and a half, we'll be touring all of our schools with this third party. They'll go through all of our protocols, access control, all these things to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, making sure that our students are safe, and giving us suggestions on what we can do better. And then we'll sort of map out what changes we need to make over the the coming year and things of that nature, so that we're as secure as we can be, as is possible in public schools. So we're excited to dig into that work and find out what we can do better and get to work on making those changes if need be. So we'll be a lot more to come on that, and I'll be excited to dive into those projects as they come, but we'll definitely have more information for you. Sure.
Stephen?
Is there a digitized copy?
I can find that out for you.
My thought would be, as you say, like have them in classrooms. What if someone was in transit and
Sure.
yeah, I would think a digital copy might be easy also to sort of search. If you had it as an app on your phone, you could
Absolutely.
just be
That's something that we can certainly, that would be fairly easy to do, to digitize that and make it available to everybody. Absolutely. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Amy?
I just, since we see it here, but people that might be tuning in, could you just give a couple examples of what is actually in a crisis book?
Sure.
Or unless Kevin wants to read it.
When you're done.
You want me to read?
Yeah, just a couple so
tabs.
people
Sure,
understand
sure.
what is a crisis and what we're
Well,
asking.
we've got natural disaster. I'm trying to find one that is more, so let's say a field trip incident, for example, which happens, and then you just flip the tab, and it just gives a step-by-step process of what the teacher or a person in charge would do. Yeah, and it just, for each tab, it just gives a pretty concise list of what the person is supposed to do in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and that way I feel like if somebody was nervous or, 'cause as you meet a crisis, you may very well be nervous. It's very common. So it's just gives you the concrete steps. There's very small margin for error there. And the right people will be alerted and the process will begin. So we think it's a really great way forward in the future.
And we can also include language in there. So if you're, in a classroom and you've never dealt with first graders, for example, have some appropriate language and verbiage that they can use so that you can keep the situation calm.
I would point out that when you initially said this, what I was thinking was shelter-in-places analysis and such, and this model goes beyond that to some things that may be hyper-local to the school, I see like whether there was a fight, or whether there was a facilities incident, or so you have a whole host of things, a myriad of options, which I think is good. But nonetheless, they all bring with them their own panic, so
Right.
it's nice to have that easily accessible.
Right.
Sorry.
Kevin?
Yeah, I work at a high school, so like and this year we've definitely had a big initiative with school safety. So like we're bringing in like a crisis team and doing the same thing, looking at procedures. And one thing that our assistant superintendent's trying to do is like almost make it as simple as possible. So the more options you have, that's when things break down. When it's like, oh, do I do this? Do I do this? And then it's just, and then you're doing the wrong thing. So I noticed like the shelter in place and the lockdown, it's like what almost happens with like any of these things, like all these all these situations, is that someone sees it and then it gets reported for like one centralized number, and then boom, it's like either it's a lockdown or a shelter in place, situation's dealt with and it's done. And at first it was like for the teachers, like when they announced shelter in place, everyone was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And now it's so normalized, like shelter in place, and then kids will be like, oh, it's like, no, could be a kid in the elevator, could be a medical incident, someone might be having a seizure, and it's become so normalized that it's actually very calm. Like when it's shelter in place, it can be done in 10 minutes, and then you go on.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that like looking at the simplicity of, okay, this happens, we do this. That's all like an automatic. I
Sure.
think that really helps a lot.
It's
And especially with like not disrupting
Yep.
like everything.
Takes the
Sorry,
guesswork out of it, yeah.
Thank you.
Can you share who is on the district crisis team and the frequency of the meetings and how we've met for the last few years?
We meet, this year we started meeting monthly. Prior to that, it was twice a month. The team is made up of our principals, administrators, and then we also have teachers, facilities. We have, for example, Tom Walsh representing our town. We'll have Chief Sullivan for the fire department. We'll have our SROs join us as well. And of course, our superintendent, assistant superintendent will join the meetings as well, so that we have a broad viewpoint for, how crises happen and all the pieces are addressed.
So during COVID, we had our nurses as part of this group.
Yes.
And they would join in and the group collaborates well, they give to one another well. But one of the things that says, coming out of COVID, it's just this notion of getting back into the practice of safety, right? And safety drills. And so in the work that we're doing we're also going to cross-reference what we are doing in regard to, for example, our flip chart and the drills that we're doing. And we'll collaborate with the police and fire as well as Tom Walsh, who is kind of a great partner for us on the town side. So we often get the question, do you drill with police? The answer is yes. Right, we do drill with police. We do drill with our SROs. We do drill with fire, right? And so those are all areas that are yes, but we need to continue to be better in those spaces, right? And we're kind of trying to learn from what is effective and really trying to be as current as possible, which is what Tim referenced earlier, which is part of the reason why we're having a third party come in, just to really assess our systems and really to help us be more effective in this space.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both very,
Nicely
very
done.
much.
Thank you.
Nicely done. I think Tim gets to stay, and Estelle.
That was my next
Thank you so
question.
much, Estelle.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Take care.
Oh, you could
Good night,
sneak in
Estelle.
an academy after.
Good night.
Good night. So we'll move on to capital. I'm not sure if it's.
Yeah,
It's
it's
up to
on you.
Okay. I actually want to start, if we could queue up, I've included a few pictures from previous capital projects that we've completed.
Great idea.
So, you know, we have a few good ones here and there. In future meetings, it'll be a more detailed, but I'm not sure if, Ryan, if you have that, we could pull that up. I just want to review a few things that we've gotten done over the past few years. Top picture, you'll see our recently completed Woodville Playground. You'll see there's a sign there that says park closed, and that's only because that was the day they finished the playground surface. So that was as new as it gets for that play structure. It's worked out wonderfully, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to be able to present these projects to the Capital Committee and with our partners at DPW, Dennis Fazio, who's a huge help, especially when it comes to playground structures. We're looking this year at replacing the playground structure at the Walton School. We're looking early summer, hopefully having that done this year. And down to the right, you see that's at the Greenwood Elementary School. That was a capital project, another playground structure that was completed just a few summers ago. So, you know, as we move through and the Capital Committee has said, you know, they basically have committed to a play structure a year until they're all updated and brand new, which I think is a wonderful thing, and we appreciate that. And then to the left there, that's what's called a Ventrac SSV. SSV stands for Sidewalk Snow Vehicle. We have 2 of those in the district. Both come from Capital, and what that's been able to let us do at the high school and the Galvin Middle School is just totally recreate the way we move snow.
This is the device I saw the custodians arguing that each wanted to turn on
They love it. And,
because it's so much fun to drive.
and I love it too. So
Okay.
they're in competition with me to get on that thing, and it's equipped with emergency lighting. It has a drop spreader for rock salt. There are multiple attachments that we can use. See in this picture, you see a brush attachment which moved the snow last night beautifully. We came in early this morning, and I started driving around to buildings long before children were going to be headed to them, and was just sort of stunned by how well the snow was removed by our crew. So I certainly want to give our custodians a kudos, because they are just doing a wonderful job. We've sort of recreated the way we do snow and ice on the school side. I brought sort of a DPW, street snow and ice perspective, because that's my history. So we do things a little different. We pre-treat to make things easier on us, and we definitely want to be working smarter. But these are great examples of, the results of these capital projects, and just want to, thank the Capital Committee that's headed up by Frank Leone, Joe Conway, of course, Steve Mayo, and everybody who allows us to return every year and request these things. So moving on to this year's capital, and we'll start with Tier 1. I'll go top to bottom.
Tim, can you talk a little bit about the structure in regard to the tiers?
Sure.
And how something might be moved from one tier to the other?
Sure. So Tier 1 is something that we define as it's critical to the district to get done. Tier 2 are still major priorities, but classified as less critical. And a Tier 3 is something that's a longer term, something that would be wonderful to be able to do right away, but if it's something that's going to happen over the next couple of years, that's great too. Certainly, if they make this list, they're all priorities of ours, but we like to break them down in tiers to just show where our thoughts are on these projects moving forward. So starting in Tier 1, district-wide, we're looking for $30,000 for rooftop unit repairs and maintenance. So these are our chiller units for air conditioning in the summer, air handler units that basically require constant maintenance. We have, these units are on every building. We have, even in some of our newer buildings, there is maintenance that needs to be done year-round. And so we're just looking at requesting $30,000 to continue those repairs. Oftentimes we have to replace motors, and when you do those sorts of things, you can't just carry one of these motors up to the roof. you have to bring a crane in to do it. So these repairs do get complicated, and we want to make sure that we're prepared to perform those. Next, at the Greenwood, you may remember this from last year, we were requesting split air conditioning units for the classrooms. The capital committee approved $25,000 for an engineering study. And we've said, this has been conversation over the past couple weeks between myself and Joe Conway. What we found, and Chris Pierce as well from the Buildings Division, what we found is that we can upgrade the electrical service at Greenwood for approximately $10,000. So what we want to do is make sure that we're being responsible with this money. We want to revisit this topic with the capital committee and say, we can invest this money towards actually just upgrading our electrical service, and then the remaining money we could actually put toward the project if they were willing to approve it. So this is something that we think we can get done in a quick time frame, fairly inexpensively, and it'll be a major improvement for Greenwood, which currently has no air conditioning at all. It does get pretty toasty over there. Moving down to the Doyle, we are looking for $100,000 for a rubber playground surface. This is something that we had spoken about in the past as well. In terms of ADA accessibility, there's really just no comparison to a rubber playground surface. It makes the playground accessible to everybody, and we think that at Doyle, it's really would be a major improvement for us, and for the population that they serve, certainly a worthwhile project at Doyle. Moving down to Dahlberg, we're looking for $220,000 for a new kindergarten playground and rubber surface there. This is, like I spoke about before, the capital committee really has committed to one playground a year. So this is next in the queue after the Walton. So we are, would be certainly excited to complete that project, and it's a definite need. We've had to make some adjustments to the current structure. There were some concerns as this play structure ages. There are some components that just aren't safe anymore. So we've removed some of those pieces, and to make sure everything that is safe and secure if children are going to be playing on it. But we want to make sure if there's anything that could pose any harm to any of our students, that we remove it. So that's where we are with the Dahlberg play structure. That's it for Tier 1. Moving down to Tier 2 at the Woodville. This was something that we applied for last year and was denied, the rooftop AC unit. It's original to the building. It's an R22 unit, which is an older style of coolant. It's incredibly expensive to replace. And the components of this unit are, we've had frequent failures of some of the components. And like I said, this is, even some of these motors, we're hiring cranes to bring these things in. And the worry is, if it does go on us, it's not a quick job. It's something that we really have to plan for. It's very expensive to replace. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on it, with plenty of lead time to get a project like this done. We think this is, the unit is currently working, but we want to make sure that we have a plan in place and the funding available to get it done as soon as we can.
Excuse me, Tim, may I
Yeah,
interrupt?
of course.
How many RTUs on Woodville?
I don't
Just
have
one?
it. What's that?
Can't-
Oh, how many
no.
rooftops? There's multiple. There's
Yeah,
two.
can't-
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I wanted to make sure you weren't referring to one, you're referring to all.
Yes. So this would be the only unit that needed to be replaced.
Okay.
Moving down to district-wide, this is something that Doug and I have spoken a lot about, and that's a facilities assessment across the district. This would allow us to sort of pivot from a reactive maintenance plan to a proactive maintenance plan. It would give us the details on our, even components at Galvin. At what interval do these, components need to be serviced, replaced? I think it gives us sort of a roadmap moving forward. We're able to make informed decisions, and would even help us on capital outlay moving forward. So we would know that, A, B, and C need to be replaced on a 5-year plan, and we can tier our capital requests based on that. And just like we spoke about with the security assessment, it's always great to have a third party come and assess these buildings, and it gives us a totally different perspective on things, and really, a best practices moving forward to make sure that we're making the right moves financially and maintenance-wise for these buildings. So, certainly my main goal is to be a good steward for these buildings. I want these buildings to look nice and function well and to last a very long time. So we feel like this is a great way to accomplish that goal. And then moving down to tier 3, we would be looking for a rubber playground surface for the Doll Bear playground that is directly behind the building. So the structure itself is relatively new and very functional. It's currently has wood chips, which is definitely an issue with accessibility and like I said, the ADA compliance, and we want to make sure that these playgrounds are accessible to everybody. So this is something that we have coming down the pipeline on tier 3 that we want to look at getting done in the coming years.
It's also something that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed will cite if and when they come out to visit for coordinated program review, is accessibility to play structures, right?
Correct.
They want students to be able to have equal access, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any questions for Tim or Doug? Kevin? Oh, I thought you put your hand up. My bad. Sorry.
But I do this
Oh,
one.
wrong Kevin.
Real quick.
I knew I had a Kevin in mind.
You had mentioned, the rooftop AC unit was denied in '23. What tier was it then?
It was a tier 2 at that
Okay.
point. As I mentioned, that unit is currently functioning, and but it's certainly something that becomes it's a worry of mine. So I'd love the opportunity to replace it so that we're not thinking, if this thing goes,
Yeah.
and say we've got programs running a summer program with Estelle in Academy, and all of a sudden the rooftop unit goes, and then we've got to sort of scramble. It's definitely at the end of its life, although currently functioning. So it's certainly something that we would have to reassess next year, whether or not that should be a tier 1 ask if it's denied this year. But it's something that we can work with on the short term, but certainly needs attention.
That's good. And the air conditioning green, would that be all classrooms?
That would be all the classrooms.
Great.
So not necessarily all, office spaces
Yeah,
and things,
sure.
but we want to make sure that across the district that, when in elementary schools and all schools, that it's sort of fair and equitable, so that everybody in that age group is able to go to school and be comfortable.
Definitely.
It's sort of the gold standard at this point.
Great, thank you.
My
Would
pleasure.
would it also allow Greenwood to be used in the summer as well, correct?
It would, yeah. The summer, what is it, the kindergarten programs?
Acceleration Academy.
The Acceleration Academy.
Tim helped us out and got us some
great.
portable units to make do for the summer, but
Sure,
those
yeah.
would be great. But it was a problem the year before. We didn't have the Greenwood kindergarten program at Greenwood because we were worried about heat. But
Right.
then, we tried to make some adjustments for this. It's just much better to have the space.
Tim, can I ask what the industry standard or practice is for units like that use R22? Is that a unit that would be worked on, or is that because R22 is being phased out? Is that accurate?
R22 is being phased out, like
Or
I
has
mentioned.
been? I don't know.
Yeah, so I believe you can still get it, but
Yeah.
it's incredibly expensive. And it's become increasingly difficult to work on, increasingly expensive to procure the components. So, it's certainly, it would be good practice for us.
Is it damaging to the environment?
Yes, so that's sort of the protocol on why they're, phasing out R22.
Got it.
So, headed in more of a green direction. I
Thank you.
don't have, specific facts to cite on that at the moment, but I certainly could follow up.
Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure.
Stephen?
Tim, can you tell me a little bit more about the Greenwood, like when you talk about sort of increasing the electrical service, what size is there now?
So we would be looking, you got a weak point for me here. I think we would be looking to upgrade to a 220 amp service, I believe is but I'd have to talk with Mike Curtin about that, who's the town's electrician. It's, we all know the age of the Greenwood School.
Yep.
It's our oldest building, and it's been a long time since that electrical service has been upgraded. But it's something that as we add, recently Dustin upgraded some of the kitchen components, and as we add more of a load on the building, we certainly are going to need the support of an updated electrical service. But Stephen, I can get you that information.
I'd be
relatively
interested.
quickly.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely.
I apologize. I'm an electrician, so
Yeah.
that I wonder.
I am far from it.
Okay. Another question I had was in terms of the facilities assessment. I'm curious. I would have thought maybe that had been a tier 1 priority, because I know sort of in conversations in the high school project, right? Something that people always go back to is we should have maintained this better. We should have taken care of this better. And this seems to go right to that. Like, it would behoove us to know as much as we can about the systems that we have in place. I'm sure it would be an asset to you yourself, still kind of being newish in the role. How convenient would that be to sort of have a nice sort of outline of what our systems are, so you know what you're grappling with?
Absolutely.
Less surprises. So I'm interested with why you keep that as a tier 2, and did you just see everything in tier 1 as being more important for now?
So for the short term, the things that are on this list in tier 1 are things that we've been asking for over a period of years. And I think, at least my thought process at this point, was to get these things that are becoming increasing priorities done, so that we're able to do something like a facilities assessment, and then be able to, in the coming years, tier out what is found to be important points of maintenance and replacement. I think certainly, as we move forward, depending on what does get approved this year, you will see that, bump up to tier 1.
Okay.
But I also know that there are some really knowledgeable folks on the capital committee. Some are industry professionals, and tier 2 definitely doesn't knock it out of play.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident that a few of the folks on that committee will see the value in a facilities assessment and possibly push that through this year. It may get approved over something that's in tier 1.
Okay.
I think that's some of the sort of the value of that committee, is there's a lot of knowledge there, and they'll give us good feedback. So we'll definitely look at that moving forward into next year as well.
Okay. Okay. So I just have a couple more. I was just curious, when I think of things like replacing units, like replacing the rooftop AC, and when we look at it in the district view, do we aim to sort of have the same manufacturers when we're talking about larger systems, so that if we're asking our facilities folks to be trained on a particular piece of equipment, are we trying to make sure that we're consistent in that, so that we don't have 4 different kinds of air handlers around the district?
Sure. So we kind of have a unique situation in Wakefield. The HVAC technician who works for the buildings department, Mike Roberto, is somebody who used to actually work for McQuay, which is now Dakin, and he's got a long history there. And these are some of the branded units that we use. So he has a unique skill set in that he's very familiar with this equipment, and so that's been we've consistently been using Dakin or McQuay equipment. Some of the stuff's McQuay because it's so old, but now Dakin. So anything that we're bringing in consistently has been that, those brands, and it's something that he is, uniquely prepared to deal with. So we're certainly, lucky to have him in the district. He's able to solve a lot of problems with us, has a unique skill set, and we're able to call on them, and really anybody in the buildings department, and get a response within an hour, which is, I find to be fantastic. And so if we do have issues with these units, he's there and he's able to address it very quickly. The only thing that we do have is some of the building management systems that control these units are different. So we have different contracts with different companies for the software that controls them. And so that may be something looking forward that we want to consolidate and look at using similar systems across all of our buildings. But that's I guess a separate conversation.
Okay.
I guess it's a long way to get to. We use a lot of Dakin equipment, and we have great staff to be able to service that stuff.
That's great.
in-house.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like having disjointed systems would be a challenge. And so if you're aligning on sort of a similar set of pieces that you're more knowledgeable with, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then my last question kind of go into that is, I assume you're still seeing issues on lead times with sort of capital projects. And so how are you sort of mitigating your challenges in when you, like, I assume you're working with Christine and trying to get sort of approval as quick as you can for things that are probably taking, in some cases, still years to sort of procure. How are you dealing in that space?
Yeah, so we try, and here I am. I'm a year and a half into it, right? So we just try to plan things out as far down the pipeline as we can. We have a capital project that was approved last year for some door access at Dahlberg. We're adding 2 access points. And that's been something really I've been working on since we found out it was approved, and it's actually going to happen during our next break. So, you just try to plan for things, and Christine will laugh. Make sure I put in a PO for it so that the money is there and spoken for, and if it takes time, it takes time. We do whatever we can to schedule things quickly and expedite things. But as time rolls on, I'm seeing less and less on the lead times, and things are a little bit more easily accessible. It's still an issue in certain circumstances, but I think things are certainly getting better, calming down a bit. We're able to get projects done pretty quickly, and if we check a few different sources too. If something's a year off from one supplier, we'll check 3 or 4 other suppliers and see if we can't get things done a little quicker. That's always my goal, is to get things done quickly, efficiently, and then move on to the next thing.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, excuse my ignorance. Who approves this?
So
Like,
this goes to the capital committee.
which is
They're an elected board,
okay.
and so, myself and a lot of other, department leads from other, divisions in town go and present these lists, try to justify why and when we need them, and they review and either approve or deny. And like I said, there's a lot of folks with a lot of great knowledge, and and they have a lot of feedback too, which is great, and it helps me sort of get a good perspective on what I should be asking for, and as I am sort of new to having to present these things. So I'm looking forward going into year 2 to be a little bit more prepared for.
So are they elected or appointed, Tim?
Appointed. They're appointed.
They're appointed? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was right on
Yeah.
that.
So, but they are industry professionals, and they're kind of a wonderful resource for us. I'm glad you asked about the kind of the facilities assessment, because the big question is, should this be a town project for all buildings? And should there be one kind of approach to this? And so, because the more we can plan and forecast, the more sound we're going to be financially.
I know
Question?
I asked this at our meeting last week, this facilities assessment, it's $100,000. I'm just trying to see what we get for that. Are we getting a database that we maintain? Are we getting a packet? Like, it's one thing to pay all this money, and then if we get this
So-
information, then who maintains it?
Right, so it's an engineering assessment,
Yeah.
right? So it's a top to bottom engineering assessment. It will tell you the current state of your roof is, you should plan on maintenance costs of, you should look at a window of replacement here, So that's the type of, so that's what it gives you, right? And so, and a lot of the people in the town already have a perspective, but what happens is that there's such a churn of people. You know, I know Chip Tarbell did a lot of this work, and in years past, but, you know, a lot has changed. And, you know, we have new buildings, new systems, new energy management systems, that are quite complex, that are really, really complex. And it's not just a matter of someone walking through and just saying, oh, this is broken, you should fix it. I mean, the management and the energy management control system, for example, at Galvin is pretty sophisticated. And Stephen, you probably have more information than I, but these are the types of things where when they break or if we don't maintain them well, we really could be at a disadvantage. We really could be at a significant disadvantage. And so I don't know if I answered your question, did I? So in regard to you asked, I thought I heard you ask, what do we get for the money?
Yeah, so I understand what an assessment is, and you gave me a lot of information, but what is the product? Like, are they gonna give us a PDF and it's just gonna sit on someone's desk and we'll flip through, like, what are we getting? A database, a PDF?
So we're likely getting
report?
a digital report and probably also a hard copy and a binder that would give you kind of the information that, you know, we would need to access, right? So anything that you purchase and don't use is a waste, right? So, but you would need to kind of access it, use it, and it becomes something that needs to be part of your annual practice and your forecasting financially, right? So.
Would it do networking as the network as well, or is it just physical buildings?
So it would be not just, I mean, it would be the technology that manages the building.
You know, like the routers and all that stuff? or-
So I don't know if it would include a technology assessment,
Okay.
you know, so I don't believe it would at this
Not-
point
not
in time.
Not like.
It's a
no.
different subset of skills
Right,
that
right,
would be
right.
required for that. It wouldn't be as part of this. And then in something like this, I would say you would get things like what are best practice in industry? Like if you're running at, you know, this much cubic volume on this type of hardware, they would say, no, you would be much better from an energy perspective to run it at this volume. And then they might ask, how many students do we have in a given time span? And no, you have the time clock set out of sync in this space. And it would be a PDF and a binder of all of that information for every piece of hardware across the district. And part of it would inform this in the future, right? Your capital outlay for things
Right.
that would be coming end of life that you might not know or other people like.
May not even be ever on our radar.
Yeah, it's like a
And-
sea turtle. It's 40 or 70 years. You
Right.
don't know. Like, but they'll come in and they'll say, oh, it's this much, and you probably have 10 more years on it or 5, and can help with the budget.
I think it would really be an unlimited resource to be able to plan. That, you know, right now, we have very skilled and very well intended, but if we can actually plan, become better planning and longer out, and to know that, you know, we don't necessarily have to rely on, volunteer efforts, or we can actually have some concrete information that says, this is what needs to be replaced in 10 years from now, and that can maybe wait 15.
Right.
And
also, I think it helps us-
and the tool, as with any tool, maybe to your, well, not to your question, but maybe to add to it, as any tool, if we don't use it well, then it's gonna be a 3-ring binder that sits on the shelf. So it's gonna be incumbent upon the administration and Tim's department and others to make sure that that becomes a handy, very handy reference that is used all the time.
Right. Even if it were a 500-page document in a binder, it would be something that I'd be carrying around with me.
Yeah.
That would be something that I would rely heavily on to make sure that that we're making the right moves, and spending the money in the right places, and maintaining the buildings the way that that they should be maintained.
Yeah. I would also add, and Amy made reference to it a moment ago, just if Mr. Boudreau were here when he would give a upcoming subcommittee report, this has been something that Tim and the superintendent have presented to the subcommittee now twice, coming before the school committee, also to Kevin's question. So we are expected to approve this. This is the school committee's request for capital, and we need to submit that to town hall. That's one of the things that is done during the budget process, but really preceding the annual budget operating process. So we're going to be Tim's bringing this forward tonight. It's been in our packet. The subcommittee is recommending these as FY '24 capital requests from the school department. So if there aren't any other questions for Tim or from Dr. Lyons, we have a motion.
Great. Move that the school committee approve FY '24 capital requests as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I just, when it goes to the capital planning and then it's approved, does then Tim come back and share what's been approved? Okay.
Sure. Be happy to.
More pictures.
Absolutely.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Very good.
Thank you all
Tim,
for your
thank you
time.
very
Thank you,
much.
Tim.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Tim. Much appreciated. I just have a few more updates, and I will kind of pass it on. And so I'd like to give a special thank you to Brendan Kent and to the boys and girls basketball teams last Friday night that were the center where we recognized the fall athletes that included the football team, cross-country team that won state championships, as well as boys and girls chair, not boys and girls chair, as well as girls chair and dance, and just really a great night. The girls team won handedly against Burlington, as did the boys team, and it was super, super fun to watch. If anyone has not had an opportunity to see the boys and girls basketball teams play, it is a great take. It's great to see, our young female athletes that are there in their WBA shirts cheering on the girls team, and it's just great. It's just a really great environment. And the girls team is amazing, as well as the boys team. But it was really just a terrific night, and special thanks to Brendan Kent. That was last Friday night on the 20th. On the 21st, we have to say thank you, special thanks to John Hanron, the science department head, to Diana Ho, library media specialist, and to Margaret Messier, who is our English curriculum coordinator, who all presented at the forum last Saturday to talk about what the current facility, the limitations are and deficits are, but what a new building would mean to the community and to students in regard to academic outcomes and academic experiences. So it was really just a terrific showing. I also need to thank Amy McLeod and students that were there that gave tours to the community as well. And so it was just a really nice day, and I felt just really happy to be there. Special thanks also to Steve Mayo for leaving a conference in Boston and coming back to present new, updated financial information that he will also be sharing this Saturday at town meeting. Moving on is just a very quick budget update. Christine, are you still on the call?
I am. Thank you, everyone.
Of course.
So first of all, I want to thank Tim O'Brien for doing such a fantastic job, because I can't stress enough how important that capital plan is for us, because our extraordinary maintenance line, just to maintain all of our buildings, is about $150,000 a year. So we can't possibly do all the things that we need to do to keep our facilities healthy and safe without that partnership with the town. So Tim does such a great job, and I just wanted to thank him for that. So also moving on, we are in the throes of budget. I think I've said that before, but we've completed all our department leadership meetings, our principal meetings, and we are starting our staff forums. We started that today. As a matter of fact, we met with the Walton School. And it's a really great forum, because everyone in the building gets a chance to kind of say what they would like to see as the goals for the budget. So that is being all put together into the request line. And of course, the requests are always more than what we can afford. So we're also kind of looking at what we can tier over this year and the next 2 years. So there's a lot more work to be done, but, the next thing after we complete these meetings by next week is the budget survey that Doug and I will be, sending out probably at the beginning of next week.
Thank you so much, Christine. And that concludes my updates for this evening. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Doug. Any questions for the superintendent? No? Okay. Excuse me. Moving on, item 11, budget items. We have a motion for gifts.
We do, we have a couple.
Couple of
Can we
motions,
bring
actually.
Eileen back on the screen, because she does vote, is she still with us?
I don't know. Eileen, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Yeah, so she can vote with
could
us.
Could I ask the folks at the WCAT to change,
Oh, hi.
change screens? Thank you.
Do you want me to read them individually? Or
Yes,
go-
please.
Okay, great. Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $2,700 from supporters of the Wakefield Warrior football program to commemorate the 2022 Super Bowl victory. The funds will be used at the discretion of the football program.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussions? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $25,000 from Andrew Lombara for the Wakefield Warrior football program. The funds will be used for the purchase of Super Bowl rings and pullovers to commemorate the 2022 Super Bowl victory. The balance of the funds will be used at the discretion of the football program.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a quick question.
Yes,
This is incredibly generous.
Indeed.
And some of the biggest that I think I've personally seen. I don't know, Dr. Lyons, is there any back information on this donation or kind of what prompted this donation?
So I think this is an alum that has a close relationship to athletics and to Brendan Kent. And I think was just really so taken by the success of the football program. I think that he just wanted to do something thoughtful and to recognize them in a way that he thought kind of matched the goal and what they had achieved this season.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. That's amazing.
Do teams typically get Super Bowl rings, high school teams?
Teams do get state championship rings.
Okay.
It's not uncommon, and so this is the first Super Bowl rings that we've had since I've been here.
Yep.
And so hopefully there'll be more, but it's not uncommon for teams to get state championship attire.
Yep.
So that can include rings, yes.
Yeah, that's exciting.
that's great.
Thank you, Mr. Lombara.
Incredibly generous. So motion made and seconded and discussed. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $1,000 from Mr. and Mrs. Wood for the purchase of books for Miss Pam's lending library at the Greenwood School.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
We didn't
Thank
do
you.
discussion. But
Would you like anything to discuss?
I just want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Wood. I'd like to see, I think this library has books about grieving. If I'm not mistaken, it would be nice if we could duplicate that in the other schools.
I think
the family did.
WEF grant,
Oh, it's going.
well, there was a WEF grant, and the WEF grant was to spread this
Oh,
as
okay.
well, so.
There is a section in every elementary library.
Yeah.
That is dedicated to Pam, and has books containing the grieving
Okay.
process.
Great,
Right.
wonderful.
Okay.
That concludes our gifts. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Yeah, indeed.
Generous.
And very generous donors this evening. Subcommittee reports, item 12. Mike, again, Mr. Boudreau's not here, but we heard probably the bulk of our last meeting was about the capital project requests, and also just continuing to hear reports and updates from Doug and Christine on the budget progress. I think I gave the labor report earlier tonight, so we'll move on to student services. Amy?
Thank you. We presented our goal earlier. We did meet Monday night. Oh, God, was that just last night? It seems so long ago. And we just discussed the survey, briefly discussed the survey results. And our next meeting is February 13th. It's a Monday night again at 5:30. Thank you.
Great. Policy, Mr. Ingles.
Sure. Policy and Communications met last Thursday. We missed Miss Colleran. She unfortunately couldn't make it. We had to do a scheduling shift, and so there was a challenge there. But we met and we talked about, we sort of led off the meeting talking about some of the suggestions that had been made by the logo committee members that had joined us in the previous school committee, and some thoughts on some edits that we could make to the logo policy. And then it caused us to talk about the history of where the policy came from, why it was created, the resolution that preceded it. So there was a little bit of a discussion around that. We did make some edits, and we'll be tabling tonight the edited policy with 2 changes in it, effectively directly addressing sort of there was some confusion in the first item, the first line of the policy, which just dictated that this policy should be enacted when the occasion arises that something needs to be worked through. And there was some confusion as to whether or not it was just the inception or whether it could be called on again if other things, if circumstances changed while the committee was in discussion. So we just struck that, and then there was some, it seemed a gray area around when the process would be concluded, so we edited a line to add effectively this is the conclusion of the process, which just so happens to be where we find ourselves now. And so those 2 edits, it's in the packet that people can read, and then we're hopefully going to table it, and then we can take a vote on the amended policy at our next school committee meeting. And then I suppose I could, if it's okay, I could just make that motion now. Oh, there it is. If that's okay.
And that's perfectly appropriate.
Okay. So the motion is to move that the school committee lay on the table the revised policy number 1111K, logos, mascots, team names, for 2 weeks consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on February 7th, 2023.
Second.
The only thing I might add as a clarification to the motion, if I may, is that over the course of the 2 weeks with the policy being laid on the draft revisions being laid on the table, if any member of the community, as well as member of this committee, has a suggestion or a comment, we are open to amending the policy live and, at the next meeting.
Yep.
It isn't going to be an up or down vote on exclusively that.
Correct. Yes.
And just to say to the public for those, because obviously we had, as you said, Stephen, we had a discussion about some of these matters last time, that this is a perfectly, a wonderful example of when these policies are laid on the table, that's for the community to provide feedback on when policies are under consideration or revision. So any member of the community is certainly welcome to reach out to, obviously, Stephen, as subcommittee chair, or Dr. Lyons, or myself, or attend the next meeting and make a comment about it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Past that, we
Well, we got to vote now.
oh, sorry.
Motion made and seconded and discussed. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. The motion is laid on the table.
And so just moving on, we talked about our subcommittee goals, which we had already discussed, and then reviewed, again, the process of the policy book review, and just understood that the revisions that the MASC already made are sitting with our legal counsel now, Ms. Spadafore. So we will get those back, we will review them, and sort of present them where changes need to be made, if they need to be made.
Great.
And then we adjourned. Our next meeting will hopefully be next Tuesday at 5.
Excellent. Good stuff.
I have a question.
Yes, Amy?
I was reading through the minutes about the student joining the school committee. Will that be something that when the subcommittee makes the decision, it will be brought to the big committee and we vote on that?
we would make a recommendation in theory based on sort of the discussions around, what's going to happen, and then we would make a recommendation and we would talk about it. And we've talked about there is no actual policy that sits sort of dictating this. It has previously resided in handbooks, and you can see it called out in different spaces. But this got to I think, Kevin, you were saying a comment about the fact that if the person, whichever student it is, we're going to sit sort of at this table, that it's worth it to have it be a committee policy. If they're gonna sit with the committee, then it should be a policy, not just a handbook notion.
Because in the notes, it was talking about 2 students joining. I didn't know.
We are in discussion.
Okay.
This is wide open right now. We've actually asked Ahmed, the student representative, who sort of brought this to us, to go back and talk to the student leaders that sit and talk with us now. Also talk to Amy McLeod. I think we're bringing, is it Valerie? Who else are we bringing into the discussion besides from Ms. McLeod? There's somebody else.
So we have-
Trafficante?
Oh,
Is it Geraldine?
Geraldine Trafficante.
Oh, okay, so a lot of voices. So we asked for a little bit of clarity because we know that something like this does sit in handbook. Again, we like the idea, and so we're just talking a lot about it. It's a lot of talking in policy,
I know.
I can add to that. I can add to that a little bit. So currently we have 2 seniors, 2 juniors that are on student council that have run and been elected, and we had talked about the possibility of 2 students joining. So there are 4 currently, but at any point having 2 students join the committee as non-voting members, just to be able to add a student perspective on any number of topics that we might be discussing. Right, so instead of putting the pressure on just one person but inviting 2. So of the 4 that we have, any 2 could attend. We had also talked, Ms. McLeod met with Ahmed and was talking about, other leadership opportunities. So he can attend school committee, and I think and he's a sophomore, right? But we have juniors and seniors here. So that we had talked about, how to, we only want to encourage participation. We don't want to, stifle that enthusiasm in any way, shape, or form. And he has been terrific in his advocacy and desire to want to be part of the work that happens here and to be able to provide his perspective. But that might be in next year's space, while the 4 current student council persons kind of cover this year or the remainder of this year. But I think we should try to get something squared away, and then try to invite students early or sooner than later, but more to follow on that. It's more information, right?
Yep.
Guess so.
Yeah. And just to add, because obviously this is a conversation we're going to be having, with the broader committee, with this, shift in policy. But for example, if you look at the agenda that we had tonight, when we were talking about the school safety update, when we were talking about student perspectives, if you look at any of the line items, like a lot of them, you would think that a student wouldn't really have anything to contribute, like capital items, like stuff like a playground, but like for school safety, you could see that a student perspective might be useful. Oh my gosh, we're doing all these drills, this is interfering, it's such a pain when this is happening, or whatever. Like it's just something that you could see that in certain areas, it could make sense to have a student perspective that would be there. So I'm exploring, that idea of having a student be a non-voting member, being allowed to verbally participate in a meeting, which is, and I don't know if it's, we've kind of been talking about, has this ever been done? Like, did they ever sit here? And then, so we're always talking about, did this happen? Was there a policy? Was there not a policy? And so we're basically just trying to make it,
We have a policy, it's just very vague.
It is.
yeah.
And we had a member. You were on
Yeah, I
the
used to
committee.
sub in once in a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did it as a student? Oh.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
in Or 90s. Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, you
It
could,
was recorded.
it's somewhere, maybe. Some old WCAT.
It was an artist.
Yeah.
Courtroom sketch.
A courtroom sketch and a quill pen and parchment paper. Okay, great questions. We look forward to whatever recommendations you'll be bringing forward. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, any liaison reports that anyone might like to offer? Seeing none, we shall move on. Next, future agenda items, item 13. Our next school committee meeting is in 2 weeks, Tuesday, February 7, 2023, here at WCAT. And just again, to call everyone's attention, this coming Saturday is a special town meeting, January 28th, 9 a.m. at the high school field house on the new high school project. So, yes, on WMHS. So, school committee comments going around the table. Would anyone like to offer a comment or thought for this evening? Stephen?
I just wanted to say, I feel like on Saturday, sort of the process for the high school is gonna reach a turning point. We're either moving forward or we're not. And so just before that happens, I would just like to sort of say my appreciation for everyone who's been involved. It has been a long process. I mean, we can go back to like 8, 9 years, when, before even Bob Vincent, put up a proposal. There's been a lot of hours put into this. And sometimes people don't necessarily see that and or appreciate that, that there has been so much collaboration and so much thoughtfulness, sort of an approach to community and getting a lot of voices at the table to sort of go through what our district needs and what our students need. And so Doug and Kara, your leadership, the school committee members that have been part of that process over the years and even from the town, just to thank everyone for their time. It's appreciated whichever way we go. It's greatly appreciated.
Indeed.
Can I add to that?
Please.
Saturday's meeting is really 5 years in the making, of kind of a lockstep process that, we've met every milestone in the MSBA modules, right? And so both with our design team, with the teachers and the administrators here at the high school to create the educational plan, the feasibility work that was done. So it's taken us quite a bit of time to get to this point, and so I'm very optimistic and positive, feeling positive about Saturday's meeting. So I look forward to seeing everybody there.
Hear, hear. Great. And thank you both for mentioning that. Very good stuff. Okay. Item 15, motion to adjourn.
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, January 24, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Good night, and we'll see you all Saturday morning.